cold winter day, a king decided to take a walk around his kingdom. And as he moved around, he saw an old man sitting on the footpath with very little clothes around his body. Now he had no warm clothes, and the man was very poor but looked contented and cheerful. The king took pity on him and asked the old man, "Aren't you feeling cold?" The old man, with all his humility, replied, "I am feeling cold, but what can I do? For many years, I have faced the winters with these clothes. God gives me the strength to bear this and live through this winter time." Hearing the reply, the king was grieved and told the poor man, "Don't worry, you wait here and I will send someone with warm clothes for you." The old man felt happy and thanked the king for his kindness. Now the king then returned back to his palace, but unfortunately, on his return to the palace that night, he forgot about his talk with the old man and got busy with his routine. Now the next day, the king suddenly remembered about the old man and his conversation that he had with him. He called his soldiers and requested him to quickly carry some warm food and clothes for the poor man. The soldier went but came back without having given the warm clothes and the food, as the old man had died the previous night. The soldier told the king that he saw the cold-stricken body of that old man, and besides the body was a handwritten note that read, "Long live the king. I have been living wearing these thin clothes every winter, but last night your promise of giving me warm clothes is taking my life." Friends, expectations are the root of all unhappiness. Our expectations of how things will never truly line up with our reality, because our expectations are built on fantasy of a future that only lives in our imagination. And managing our expectations is the key to our happiness. Our dissatisfaction, disappointments, and unhappiness live in the gap between our expectation and the reality that occur. We fall in a state of incongruence when there is a gap between the ideal life and the real life. Jodi Picoult, an American author of over 26 novels, once said, "There were two ways to be happy: improve your reality or lower your expectations." So if you want to be happy, you are going to need to keep your expectations in check. We need to have a realistic expectation of ourselves and others if we are not to be met with a never-ending hurt and disappointment. Expectations are actually good and healthy, and they have enormous amount of power. Like your thoughts, they influence your reality. We have always had certain expectations about our relationships, careers, events, or anything that we are involved in any level. Now, having high expectations is not a bad thing. Who wants to have low expectations and then be right? Even if you are disappointed, then at least you are aiming high in life and not settling for mediocrity. Now, it is the unrealistic expectations that ruin us. As living beings, we are bound to harbor expectations regardless of whether we walk on 4 or 2 legs. Our expectations can get the better of us when we expect more than what is realistic in each situation. Now, unrealistic expectations can happen in so many ways. Now, in a talk titled "Why We Are Unhappy: The Expectation Gap" by Netwell, he explains the concept of expectation gap and why we are actually unhappy. The expectation gap is defined by our expectations being greater than our reality. He identifies 3 different types of gaps. The first one is imagination gap. Then he talks about the interpersonal gap, and the third is intertemporal gap, which are formed by imagination, by the people around us, and by our past experiences. Now, the imagination gap happens when what we imagine actually exceeds reality. Netware asserts that our decision-making process undermines happiness, and technology today makes it much worse. What technology does is that it skews our vision and distorts reality. We compare our worst moments to other people's best moments, which very often is or are filtered. We may not even realize this mismatched comparison, and this is what makes the unreal seem real. Now, the imagination gap has an impact on unhappiness, largely reflected by the use of technology in 3 key industries, namely the beauty and wellness industry, the travel and tourism industry, and the pornographic industry. Now we digitally enhance photos before posting on Instagram, and in terms of beauty, it results in low self-esteem. Advertisers rather have learned that if you make people hate themselves, you can sell them things. And we are shown pictures of models who are made to seem perfect even though they are not. Now, picture perfect destinations have made us romanticize on travel. The romanticization of traveling on social media platforms has impacted us to such an extent that we make ourselves believe that traveling to exotic destinations or locations can only make us happy. Save your money, quit your job, travel the world, and pure bliss is yours. Now, this seems to be the message portrayed by many influencers in the travel world through social media. Now, according to a study, social media deception is a real thing, with travelers posting only those pictures that make vacations look better than it actually is or was. Now, travelers may, however, be disappointed when they arrive in what is called as social inspired destinations, as content creators spend too much time curating the perfect wanderlust-worthy photos enhanced with filters and Photoshop. The destination may not be as incredible as it portrayed through technology. Now, I must admit that I personally was a victim of the imagination gap, largely as an outcome of exposure to digitally modified blow-ups of tourist attractions on my travel to Europe. Now, when I first visited Louvre in Paris, the world's most visited museum, the museum had over 380,000 objects, yet the Louvre's most famous art piece is undoubtedly the Mona Lisa. Now, considering that when I traveled, Louvre received about 10.2 million travelers in 2018, you can only imagine how many selfie-happy tourists swarmed a piece of art. Not only was it suffocatingly crowded, but it also was much smaller than expected and heavily protected, and hence often seemed a complete letdown. Now, when I visited Venice, though it was a beautiful city, the rivers were ridden with litter and was foul-smelling. Worst of all, a 30 minutes ride on the iconic gondola set us back by about 80 euros. Now then we went to the mannequin piece at Brussels, which was another disappointment. It is a bronze sculpture of a little boy peeing into the fountain, which is grossly over-photographed and hyped. I felt this tiny statue didn't really need to have 50 people crowding it at any given time. While the astronomical clock was magnificent, but the 45-second apostle parade every hour was a big letdown and a disappointment. Now, in another context, the online world has also skewed our imaginations on our views about sex. Young minds watching porn today have come to believe that what they see is reality and base their expectations on it, and often nothing can be further from truth. Pornography is guilty of portraying people and sexual relationships that do not accurately reflect how real people look and act and behave in an intimate relationship. Sexual content through technology often sends messages about sexuality that are distorted, stereotypical, and potentially harmful. Now, the second type of expectation gap that makes us unhappy is what is known as the interpersonal gap. We judge ourselves based on what we experience around us. If we earn a lot of money in a poor neighborhood, we will feel rich. But if we earn a lot of money in a rich neighborhood, we feel poor and disappointed. Comparison has always been the thief of joy. We feel a sense of pain when people around us gain and feel the reverse when they lose, a truly inhuman feeling. Now, the third gap arises largely because of our past experiences known as the intertemporal gap. Now, and we are unhappy when our past reality was better than our present reality. As parents, we tend to give our best to our children. We tend to give them everything to give them a best start in life. But often, the best intentions don't always lead to the best outcomes. But while we give them everything, it's much harder for them to have what is called a positive intertemporal gradient. As grown-ups, if they are unable to meet the reality as they have experienced in their early days, they will surely be unhappy. Now, the problem of unhappiness is further compounded when we begin to tell our children that they are very special and they are unique and they are one of a kind, that they are amazing. We encourage them and we tell them that they can be like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or the next Mark Zuckerberg. What we actually end up doing is that we raise their expectations a little too much. And so when the child gets a normal job or when they start a business and it fails, like most do, they are disappointed, they are unhappy, and their expectations haven't been satisfied. Yes, children do need self-belief, but we should not delude them. Making children believe that they are exceptional, that they don't need to put in the hard work or suffer a few setbacks along the way will surely delude them and make them unhappy when they face setbacks. Our expectations are largely determined by what we consider to be normal, and what we consider to be normal is largely based on our imagination, based on others around us, and based on our past. And so we have these constant battles, the battles between our imagination and our reality. So how can we win these battles to be happy? There are 3 important steps to be taken. First, awareness of your expectation. Second, find a balance between contentment and ambition. And third, manage your expectation by being realistic. Friends, savoring what you have is a great way to expand the joy you experience in your life. Similarly, if we can lower our expectations but not our efforts throughout our lives, we might just unlock the doors to happiness.